My name is Billy Gould. I I am a composer. I'm in a band called Faith No More, Talking Book. Just worked on a soundtrack to a film called The Eclipse, which is coming out next month.
Beautiful. Billy, thanks for joining us today, buddy.
Hmm? Glad to be here.
Well, so as you say, man, your project with Jared Blum called Talking Book, release your
That's
latest
right.
music, The Eclipse, on November the 24th. So how are you feeling about it?
Good. I mean, we never really worked on a full feature film before like this, so it was the first time we didn't know if we were doing it right, but it came out all right. I mean, the director was really happy. I think I saw it on a big screen, and I was really happy with how it all came together. It was a nice relief. It was a little intimidating when we first decided to take it on.
That sure would have been. And as you say, it's actually the soundtrack to a film by Natasha Urban. So how did you come to be involved?
Well, I'd known her for a decade and a half before. She has made a lot of other films that were very interesting. She made a film in Nepal following a young girl and how she grew up, kind of like different stages of her life and what happens to her family. And I just kept in touch with her. When I worked on earlier Talking Book Records, I sent her a copy of them, and she liked them, so she kind of knew the kind of stuff we did. And she's really individual. Obviously she's a director. She's a visual person. She sent me some photos when she was in this place called the Valley of the Moon in Uganda, and we almost used that as our cover for an album back in like 2000 and I don't know, 11 actually. And So we kept in touch, and when she decided to do this film, I mean, she just said I was the first person that she really would want to do it. She kind of knew the aesthetic that I take towards things like this, and we saw some clips of her film. They're very, uh, what's the word? Evocative. Some stuff's filmed in Super 8. Some of it's very textured, some of it's very saturated, and to me, it's like with her visuals was kind of what we like to do with sound. So. Uh, we thought it would be a pretty good match.
So lately, soundtracks and things like this, they've been made up of a heap of different bands and their songs, but this one just features Talking Books. So must have been a pretty big project for you to undertake.
I mean, it was and it wasn't. It's an hour and a half film. You know, people that do this, they probably have a nice template that they work on. The big part of it really was that, how can we make something that feels consistent, that all fits together, that follows the line of the story and the narrative, and make it feel like it all belongs there without drawing too much attention to itself? Because, you know, it's really about the film and not about the music. The music is just there to support. So you have to look at things a little different way. It's not like being in a rock band where, you're trying to keep things exciting all the time. It's the opposite of that. You're actually trying to be invisible.
So describe the process to us of writing for a soundtrack or a score to a movie like this. Like, do you, like you say, do you sit down and watch the movie and do it
Yeah,
scene
man.
by scene, or?
We tried a couple different processes. I mean, my first approach was I saw the movie and I saw a clip of it, or a rough cut of it, and I had some music that I thought could fit with it that was very structured. Didn't work at all. Didn't work, and that was really scared the shit out of me. Jared is a little more of a little more comfortable working with abstract stuff because that's really what he does. That's his forte. He does it all the time. I do it, but I don't do it all the time. I come from a kind of linear music background of being in bands, writing songs, structured songs. Um, so once I kind of learned to let go a little bit and kind of relax and just see where the film took me without having to have an exciting result, it seemed to come much more naturally.
And the press release says that you united exploratory sound work with dramatism and curiosity to approach the writing. Can you elaborate on that? Like, go a bit deeper into that for us?
I mean, really, it's just the way I do things. My approach musically is always, neutral stuff is really the worst stuff. If you have, 5 minutes, 60 minutes to make a statement, you want that statement to connect with somebody. They could hate it, That's fine. Hatred is a form of connection. It's neutral stuff. It's taking doing something that does nothing. Neutral imagery, neutral effect to me is the biggest sin you could have. So I approach everything I do that way. I mean, Faith No More was that way. We were. I would like to think that we did a lot of different things, but it was never neutral. Um, and I think that that ideology kind of goes into what I did with this. It's just that it just sounds totally different.
So expanding on that a bit more, mate, like say you've written albums with Faith No More, but how different is it writing for a movie?
Absolutely, 100%, million times different. You don't really have a map. I mean, at least we didn't. The director is not a musician, and she just said, "Here's a rough cut of my film. Come back with something."
Right.
Basically, and we're like, "Okay, what do we do? Where do we start?" I mean, it's a blank slate, and yeah, I'm surprised we got through with it in one piece. To be honest with you, because we really started from zero. We kind of figured out our own way.
So further to that, the press release also says that it took you to a whole different mental place. Like, can you explain what they mean by that?
Just that, well, first of all, it's her movie, not ours. So we had to kind of go where the movie took us. And the second thing is, I mean, the stuff I do with Jared is always has a visual component to it. In that, when you're listening to it, I think it's successful when you're visualizing things as you're listening. It brings up visual images in your mind. So that's something that was very important.
It's sort of you've had to get that cinematic feel to the music on this. Like I know with Faith No More, like you explored a lot of different soundscapes and did them successfully. But how difficult is it to actually get that cinematic boom and that cinematic feel to your music?
I don't know. It just happened. You just, with stuff like this, you just keep working on it until it feels right, and it feels like it's the right thing for that right moment, and it's there. And it's actually, with rock music, to be honest with you, when you've got the song written when it feels right. You might change a guitar part here and there, small arrangements, but you basically know when you've got a solid, intact song. With something like this, you don't know it's done until it feels like it's done. And what does that mean? You don't know until you get there. I mean, we got there with these, but we did a talking book record you know that we released about 3 years ago that took about 4 years to make because it never felt done. We just kept working on it. So that's just the way it is, with abstract music.
Yeah. So we've spoken about the music, which is your part of the film, but tell us more about the Eclipse, the movie. Like, what's it actually about?
Well, it's a very intense movie, even though there's no real like action and violence in the movie. It's about someone growing up in a place where their family, their grandparents, all were exposed to a certain amount of political violence and just violence in society, and kind of just they didn't take part in it, but they were part of it. They were part of that environment, and the director actually, where she grew up in this part of Serbia, was very close to where there was some really bad fighting, and um, for whatever reason that she didn't even know, I think she had to leave eventually. It was just there was an atmosphere that she wasn't reconciling with herself, and making this movie was kind of her way to come back and speak with her parents and her grandparents and try to find out what happened and why she wanted to leave and what they went through and if this all this was going on, what did you do? And so it's a very heavy movie. Actually, it's not a passive movie in any way at all, and it's very visually beautiful. It's just gorgeous, some gorgeous shots of just rural Serbia, but it can be a really beautiful place.
So you would have seen the scenes in the movie without music, and then obviously you would have seen them after you've added your music. So how much of effect do you think what you did had at the end of the day?
Well, the director thinks it had a big effect,
That's good.
so I'm happy. I think it did. I think it did. I mean, you have to think about it like all the things that I tried that didn't work, right? If you still a movie like that with those failed songs, you'd see that what we ended up doing did make a big difference. I think. I think in a positive way. That's the important part. That it made a positive difference in that it made the actual visual material more engaging, and that was its job.
So for those unfamiliar with Talking Book, mate, tell us a bit more about that project. Like a lot of people just know you
The,
from Faith No More, but this is completely
yeah,
different.
right. Totally. This is different. Exactly. Jared is a guy, and there's another member of Talking Book that didn't work on this soundtrack. His name is Dominic Cramp, and these guys. I met Jared waiting in line for a hamburger.
Oh, wow.
And it's funny. We started talking about industrial music, like from the '80s and stuff like that. And I kind of used to listen to a lot of experimental music growing up, and going to experimental shows in LA in the late '70s and early '80s. And so we bonded over that. And he had a label called Gigante Sound, and I brought him into my studio and I helped him master some stuff and got some technical stuff together because that's kind of something that I could add to what he was doing. And we just kept working. He needed something that needed some listening to on a nice pair of monitors, and I'd bring it over to my place. And we got to a point where we knew each other pretty well, and we just thought, what would happen if we put our heads together? What kind of music we could come up with? So we put out an album in 2011 called The Talking Book, and I love that record. I think it's freaking awesome. It's something that I've never worked on before. I never thought I could work on something like that, though it is like music that I would be listening to. I just never ever had a chance to actually play it. So we did that. We did a little touring. We did some shows in the Bay Area. We went to Brazil and did a tour there. Two tours of South America actually. And then we worked on a second album, Talking Book 2, that came out about 4 years ago. And here we are today. That's about it. But yes, very different from Faith No More. But you can hear it. It's all in in Spotify and Apple Music and all the streaming services.
So what's next for Talking Book after this, mate? Are you going to go on to album number 3, or are you going to have a bit of a break?
I do not know actually. I mean, I'm the kind of person that's always collecting ideas all the time. Just what I do. It's like riding a bicycle. I just do that. My hard drive is full of stuff. But taking it to the next step, that's a good question. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We'll
Well,
have to see.
Watch this space to see what the future holds.
Yeah, right, right.
Well, so the soundtrack's out on the 24th. Is the film come out on the same date?
The film's been out at film festivals for the past year.
Right.
It actually won a bunch of awards through Europe, and I think it was just the reception that it got. It was so good that we decided. I have a label, Cool Arrow Records, which I'm releasing this on. That it just seemed right, to release the soundtrack to this film. The director was happy. The film did really well. It was a great statement, and it's just great to have a document of it.
All right, Billy. Well, thanks very much for your time today, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. The soundtrack to the Eclipse comes out on November the 24th. So wrap your ears around it and see how you go.
Thank you. I appreciate you being interested in it.